While on a road trip through Ohio, I started feeling really tired. So I decided to stop in a small town called Kenton. I found a place called Kenton Hotel. It looked a bit old, but then again, the whole town seemed that way. I didn't need anything fancy, just a place to sleep for the night. I parked my car and went to the small front office. Inside, there was an old man sitting there, reading a newspaper. It was pretty hot, and there was this noisy fan on a table making a buzzing sound. I asked for a room, and the old man finally looked up from his paper. He didn't really greet me or anything, just said, "It's $65. Assuming he meant $65 for the room, I handed him my credit card. I also asked if it's possible to get a corner room, thinking it might be nice, but he just said no. The customer service there was not really included in the price, it seemed. The old man handed me this old-fashioned key, not like the ones we use these days. No key cards here, they kept it old school. I walked across the parking lot to my room. The door was actually hard to unlock. I had to wiggle the key around a little before it finally turned. Before stepping in, I took a look around the lot. There were only 2 other cars in the parking lot. It felt a bit like a ghost town. I went into the room and the smell hit me. It was a mix of cotton and vomit. I wondered if I should go back and ask for a different room. But looking at the state of this place, I figured all the rooms probably smelled the same. The room itself was small. It had this blue, dirty, worn-out carpet, a couch, a small coffee table, and a bed. I shut the door and tried to lock it, but I was having trouble. More trouble than I did unlocking it. After about 30 seconds of wiggling the key around and almost popping a blood vessel, I felt like I might have broken it. But when I tried opening the door, it wouldn't open. So even though the door wasn't fully locked, as long as it wouldn't open, I figured that's all that mattered. I crawled up in the bed, and as my weight sank in, I heard all the old springs squeaking. I tried turning on the TV, but of course the remote didn't work. So I just crawled onto the covers and tried to go to sleep. Then it happened. I nearly jumped out of my own skin when there was one loud thump at the window. I looked, and there was a guy standing outside. He started talking, sounding all hurt and in need of help. He was saying, "Hey, please let me in. I hurt myself. Dead. I need help." He definitely saw me in that bed. I yelled back, telling him to go to the front desk. He wouldn't stop though. There was no way I was opening that door. I had a feeling he was acting, and this was some kind of trap. Eventually, after ignoring him for long enough, he left. I turned to check and confirm, and he was gone. That's when it hit me. I hadn't realized how truly unsafe this area was. I had to get up and check the lock on the door just to be safe, making sure the door wouldn't open. I gave the door a couple of good pulls, and it didn't open. I then closed the curtains in front of the 2 windows so that he couldn't come back and look in at me again. That shook me up a bit, but the nerves calmed within half an hour, and I was able to fall into a half sleep not too long after. I started having this weird dream where I was in a closed supermarket, running from the manager who was chasing me. At some point during the dream, these clicking sounds started taking over to the point that my whole dream shifted to incorporate these sounds. And then, with that, I was awake. The room was cold for some reason. Then I looked down and realized the blanket was pulled off of me. I sat up to pull it back over me, but then I saw at the foot of the bed there was this tall figure looming over me. Before I could scream, he went, "Shh," and told me not to move. He told me he wouldn't hurt me if I didn't make any movements or sounds. Then he asked me where my wallet was. I told him it was in my jeans pocket on the floor. All I saw was this figure towering over me in the bed, moving away from the foot of the bed to my jeans on the floor. I heard him wrestling with the jeans, digging through the pocket until he found it. Then he asked what else I had in there. I was just taking a road trip. With that, he didn't say another word and left. I ran to try and relock the door as soon as he left, having the same trouble as earlier. I then called the police, but they were of no immediate assistance. We went to the guy at the front desk who played back the video footage caught. However, the guy who entered the room was wearing a face mask and a hat, hiding all his features. I got my money back and left. Thank God I didn't have much cash in my wallet. I canceled all my cards and slept in my car. I learned my lesson, never to stop at a sketchy motel.
Back when I was 18 and in my senior year of high school, I used to play softball for our school's female softball team. That year, our school was actually really good, and because of that, we were invited to an invitational tournament in Las Vegas. I remember we stayed in a hotel only around 15 minutes from the city itself. It was around 9 p.m. when we got there, and we all sort of divided into our own groups to stay in hotel rooms. Because of that, me and 3 other close friends at the time decided to stay in a room together. Around an hour later, all 4 of us were unpacked and winding down in our room as our first game of the tournament was scheduled early the next morning. But as I was lying in bed and basically half asleep at this point, the phone to our room rang. It kind of startled us, as I've stayed in many hotels before and never once remember the hotel phone itself ringing. All of us now wide awake looked at each other, and we agreed we should answer it, with me being the designated responder. So, I picked up the phone and said the usual hello. Now, this was a few years ago, so I don't remember the exact conversation, but on the other end of the phone, a man's almost whispering voice replied, saying we hadn't paid for a room and that one of us needed to come down to the lobby to pay for it. Immediately, red flags went off in my head as I knew his claim wasn't true. I had witnessed our coach pay for the room not even 2 hours ago. Why would they have given us room keys if we hadn't paid for it? Plus, even if something had gone wrong with the payment, it would have been super unprofessional to call the room this late into the night. I replied to the man, saying that we had paid for the room. But completely ignoring my statement, the man once again insisted that just one of us had to come down, as our room wasn't paid for. His voice, now clearly frustrated, then followed the claim up with a threat, saying that if we didn't send one person down, there would be consequences. Now, I'm a pretty paranoid person, and the whole thing felt so wrong to me. There was no way I was letting any of us go down to the lobby. I replied to the man, saying that we would be staying in our room until someone came to escort us out, and hung up the phone. I figured that if that really was someone from the hotel, they would either come up to our room or just resolve the situation in the morning. I told the others that I got a really bad feeling from the dude and explained to them what happened. Thankfully, they all agreed that there was no chance we hadn't paid, and that it was basically unheard of for a hotel front desk to call you in your room this late. Of course, we were all on edge but decided to forget about it and just go to sleep. No one came to kick us out, but through the night, the phone to the room did ring a few more times. The next morning, we told our coach about this situation, and he asked the person working at the front desk about it and if his payment for the room didn't go through. But to our horror, they had no idea what we were talking about and even insisted that the front desk would not have called us that late into the night. They agreed to check the security cameras to see if they could find anything, but for the rest of our time there, we never heard back from them. Luckily, though, nothing else ever ended up happening to us. This whole situation was really disturbing and has left me with a lot of questions, like who called us? Why did they want one of us to exit the room alone in the middle of the night? And how did they know what room we were in? Honestly, the more I think about it, the more creeped out I get, but I'm just glad we decided to stay in our room that night.
Last year, my dad and I decided to go on a journey to a town that faced a lot of rain. Our mission was simple: to lend a helping hand to families dealing with the challenges caused by the rain. So we loaded up a big truck with clothes and items to support those in need. On the first night, we stayed in a hotel. It was quite nice because our room had a view of the ocean. That night, my dad and I stayed up late watching a scary movie on my laptop. The movie was called The Blair Witch Project, and it made me a bit too scared to easily fall asleep. The following night, my mom found us a different place to stay, a motel. It was situated close to a trailer park and a large lake. The motel was surrounded by trees, giving it a somewhat eerie atmosphere. When we met the people managing the motel, there was a friendly old lady and a man who looked like he stepped out of a scary story. He never said a word, never smiled, and had many wrinkles on his face. It left me and Dad feeling a bit uneasy. The day zipped by, and to avoid going back to the motel, Dad and I went out for pizza and a movie. When we returned, darkness had already fallen. While retrieving our belongings from the truck, we discovered a bag of children's clothes hidden under a spare tire. We thought about giving it to families in the nearby trailer park, but something felt off. We asked the old manager if he could keep the bag for the trailer park, but he firmly said no and walked away. Feeling puzzled, we decided to leave the bag at a charity bin back home. After taking our showers, we went to bed. I distinctly remember waking up at 2:17 a.m. due to Dad's snoring. I stayed up, reading with my body facing the door. Outside, the sound of cars racing made me think it was just people having fun. However, things took a turn when a bright blue light seeped through the cracks in the door, accompanied by whispers I couldn't comprehend. Fear gripped me, and I found myself frozen. My heart pounded, and my hands trembled. The door handle started to rattle, signaling that something wasn't right. The blue light vanished, plunging the room into complete silence. I remained motionless for what felt like an eternity before waking up Dad. I shared everything with him, and he laughed it off. He mentioned hearing scratches on the walls earlier. Still fearful, he gestured for silence, asking if I heard it too. All was quiet until I heard faint scratches coming from our bed frame. Alarmed, I leaped out of bed, and we decided it was time to leave. Leaving the room key on the bed, we quickly made our way to the truck. We departed at 2:32 a.m., vowing never to return to that unsettling motel again.
During my teenage years, our family embarked on a winter getaway to a ski resort in the picturesque landscapes of Colorado. I found myself in the role of the older sibling, with an older brother, a younger brother, and a 7-year-old sister who added an extra layer of joy to our family dynamics. Little did we know that this family trip would take an unexpected turn, casting a chilling shadow over our second night at the resort's hotel. On that fateful night, we decided to unwind in the soothing warmth of the sauna, a place where relaxation and camaraderie usually take center stage. As we indulged in the comforting heat, my older brother, amidst the heat-induced haze, voiced the unanimous sentiment of a growing hunger. It was a simple decision. One of us had to make the short trek back to our room to fetch some snacks. In a moment of carelessness, perhaps fueled by the ease of the environment, we assigned this task to our youngest member, my 7-year-old sister. As we immersed ourselves in the comforting ambiance of the sauna, we paid little attention to the potential risks that came with sending our little sister alone on this innocuous errand. Minutes later, our ears caught the sound of hurried footsteps echoing down the hallway. Bursting into the sauna, breathless and wide-eyed, our sister recounted a bone-chilling encounter. A creepy man had been following her. The gravity of our mistake struck us like a sudden cold breeze. Glancing out of the sauna window, we witnessed a man we hadn't seen before pacing ominously in the swimming pool area. His figure, draped in layers of winter clothing, seemed out of place for someone ostensibly in a swimming pool area. Frozen in disbelief, we watched as this mysterious figure began moving towards our sanctuary. The sauna's one-way window shielded us from his view, leaving us in the eerie position of witnesses to an unfolding, unknown threat. He reached the sauna door, swung it open, and there, to his apparent surprise, he found not one, but 4 people inside. After a pregnant pause, he closed the door and briskly exited the area, choosing an escape route through a building exit rather than the swimming pool area. Returning to our room, a mix of fear and relief enveloped us. We recounted the harrowing incident to our parents, who, while understandably upset at our lapse in judgment, reported the unsettling encounter to the hotel's front desk. As we dissected the events, the haunting what-if scenarios lingered in our minds, especially considering the man's unexpected departure. Reflecting on that incident, it's evident that the man who trailed my sister wasn't a fellow hotel guest. His unanticipated intrusion hinted at darker intentions, leaving us to grapple with the realization that our seemingly secure environment harbored unforeseen dangers. In hindsight, the incident serves as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance and collective responsibility, especially when the safety of our loved ones is at stake. While the resort provided an idyllic backdrop for a family retreat, it also unraveled a suspenseful chapter that we, fortunately, escaped unscathed.
Some time back, my ex-girlfriend and I decided to spend a weekend in the mountains. Our relationship was often rocky, but we hoped the peaceful setting would bring some calm. However, on the second night, things escalated in the hotel room, and it became impossible for us to share the same space. Instead of booking another expensive hotel room just for myself, which would have cost around $150, I opted for a more budget-friendly solution. I drove down the road and found a motel where I could stay for a mere $50 for the night. My idea was simple. If I took a night away, maybe giving her some space, things might improve by morning. Little did I know, this decision would lead me into a peculiar and eerie experience. Approaching my motel room, I couldn't ignore the door to the room next to mine, wide open and illuminated by the blue glow of the TV. Although I couldn't discern what was on the screen from my vantage point, I didn't see anyone inside. I chose not to linger. After all, I had my own concerns. Entering my room, it looked like your standard motel setup, a queen-size bed with a somewhat outdated floral bed cover, a TV, and a sofa. Since sleep eluded me, I decided to lay on the bed with the TV on, entertaining myself with games on my phone. Suddenly, an odd noise emanated, not from the TV but from the room next door. It was indistinct, and I couldn't quite determine if it was a couple arguing, a TV show, or something more sinister. Trying to dismiss it, I attempted to get some shut-eye. That's when I heard a distinct banging on the wall that separated our rooms. Curiosity overcoming fear, I approached the wall and, to my surprise, there was someone pounding on it from the other side. I couldn't fathom why, but I felt compelled to confront them. Knocking on their door, which was still strangely wide open, I asked if everything was okay or if they needed help. No response. The TV was still on, but an eerie silence hung in the air. The bathroom door was open, the light off. Tentatively, I stepped into the room. To my bewilderment, there was no one there. Confused and slightly unnerved, I moved closer to the TV to see what was on the screen. It was just a blank blue screen, but a sticky note caught my eye. It read, "Check under the bed." I dropped the note and hurried out of the room, slamming the door behind me. Back in my room, I double-locked the door, crawled into bed, and texted my girlfriend about the bizarre incident. As I explained it to her over the phone, the banging on the wall resumed. Terrified, she suggested I run to my car or the front desk. Opting for the latter, I wanted to at least get my money back. At the front desk, I told the attendant about the situation, urging him to check the room next to mine. Oddly, he claimed both rooms were vacant. Frustrated, I returned to my girlfriend at the hotel. The events of that motel room still haunt me. I don't know who or what was under that bed, and frankly, I'd rather not find out.
It was a Friday, and I found myself on a business trip, lodged in a hotel in the less-than-ideal part of town. The night took a sinister turn after a late-night meeting, dragging on into the darkness. Exhausted, I returned to my room, knowing another early morning meeting awaited me. Despite not feeling tired, the necessity of sleep loomed over me. I decided to try, tossing and turning in bed for about an hour before realizing a good night's sleep was elusive. Desperation led me to put on a podcast, hoping its familiar drone would lull me into slumber. As the podcast played, memories of past successful sleep inductions reassured me. Eventually, I began to drift off, only to be abruptly awakened 3 hours later by an unsettling noise, a faint knocking sound. Sitting up, I checked the clock and discovered it was 2 in the morning. I removed my headphones, confirming the eerie noise persisted. Louder now. Initially, I brushed it off, attributing it to someone in the room above me. However, my room's location on the ground floor contradicted that logic. Ignoring the disturbance, I laid back down, but within 30 seconds, a realization struck me. The sound was not from above, but originated from the lock mechanism of my front door. I leaped out of bed, approaching the door to confirm its movement. As I got closer, the door oscillated, a clear indication of someone on the other side attempting to pick the lock. Instinctively, I pivoted towards my suitcase, retrieving my 14-round pistol that I always carried during my travels. Returning to the door, I witnessed the lock twist and unlatch. Without hesitation, I pointed my weapon, anticipating a split-second reaction if the intruder broke in. Fortunately, the door abruptly halted its opening, halted by one of those latches on hotel doors designed as a secondary lock. This unexpected savior prevented a potentially life-threatening confrontation. However, I realized it wouldn't deter the intruder from persisting in his attempts. I observed a hand reaching through the crack of the door, attempting to unlock it from the inside. In that critical moment, I shouted that I was armed, prompting the hand to retreat, followed by rapid footsteps echoing down the hall. Contemplating whether to involve the police, I decided against it, recognizing the futility as the intruder would likely escape. The next day, I headed to the front desk to inform the management, only to find the lobby teeming with police. The intruder from the previous night was an escaped prisoner, going from room to room, picking locks and robbing guests at knife point. The gravity of the situation struck me. The thin latch on my door was the only barrier between me and a potentially deadly confrontation. 9 months have passed, and the fate of the escaped prisoner remains uncertain. The incident left me grappling with the unpredictability of such scenarios. People often say you don't know how you'll respond until faced with a crisis. In this instance, I'm proud of how I maintained composure and was mentally prepared for the unthinkable. The realization that a simple door latch was my only defense against an armed confrontation with an escaped prisoner still sends chills down my spine.
The summer sun cast its warmth as my 12-year-old self, along with my mom and younger brother, found refuge in a bustling city hotel during a family visit. Opting for the independence of a hotel stay over the camaraderie of extended family, we settled into our temporary abode. Being the elder sibling, the task of keeping an eye on my younger brother fell squarely on my shoulders. Upon our arrival, my mom delegated the responsibility of watching my brother to me while she navigated the check-in process. We perched ourselves on a lobby couch, waiting. The bustling atmosphere of the hotel lobby was momentarily disrupted as a seemingly average man in his mid-40s strolled in. The couch we occupied faced the entrance, providing me with a direct line of sight to this unremarkable figure. His features were nondescript, making it difficult to form a clear mental image. He casually took a seat on the couch opposite ours, and that's when a twinge of unease settled in. Unlike typical hotel guests, he didn't approach the front desk immediately. Instead, he casually strolled in and settled down. A nagging discomfort crept in as I pondered the possibility of him following us. Luckily, my mom called us over, announcing that our room was ready, and we left the lobby, momentarily forgetting about the man. Later, around 7 p.m., after returning from our family visits, my mom granted us the luxury of an evening swim in the hotel pool. Changing into our swimwear, we headed to the pool, only to be surprised by the reappearance of the same man from the lobby. Fully clad in jeans and a sweater, he exhibited no intention of taking a dip. It struck us as odd, though not overly alarming at first. My mom, on the other hand, visibly tensed, pointing out the man. She informed us that if he didn't vacate the premises within 5 minutes, we were to return to our rooms. Despite the passing time, he lingered, prompting us to gather our belongings and make a hasty exit. By 8 p.m., safely back in our room, our plan for the night was simple: watch a rented movie and hit the hay. I couldn't help but notice my mom's heightened anxiety, likely stemming from the lingering presence of the man who seemed to be watching us. Halfway through the movie, my mom got up to take a shower, and that's when an unexpected knock echoed through the room, claiming to be housekeeping. The voice was oddly high-pitched for a late-night visit. Assuming we might need an extra towel, I opened the door, only to be met with the unsettling sight of the same man, grinning and waving. Stunned, my mind raced through chilling possibilities: kidnapping, torture. As the water in the shower abruptly ceased, he stood there, making casual inquiries about our swim. Panic began to set in when my mom emerged from the shower, spotted the man, yanked me back, and forcefully slammed the door shut, promptly locking it. Refusing my suggestion to call the police, my mom dialed the front desk from the hotel phone to report the incident. While she conversed with the front desk, we heard the sound of footsteps retreating down the hallway away from our room. Fortunately, the man had departed. Opting for prudence, we requested a room change. Thankfully, we encountered no further unsettling encounters during the remainder of our stay.
Back in the chilling year of 1984, when I was but a mere babe, my parents found themselves tangled in the web of financial struggles. Their brilliant idea of having 4 kids with no savings to boast of had led us to a dark chapter of our lives, residing in a local motel with weekly rates. We dwelled in that unsettling place for about a year, where my dad bore the weight of being the sole breadwinner, and my mom, confined to the motel room, tended to 3 restless children, all under the age of 4. My hazy memories from that time are blurred by the passage of years, but the tales of that place echoed through my childhood, a haunting reminder of our family's journey. One fateful morning, as my dad prepared for work and my mom readied my older sister for school, a sinister presence cast its shadow against the drawn curtains of our motel bedroom. My mom, known for her skittish nature, hastily ushered my sister toward the bathroom, whispering urgently, "There's someone outside the window." Dad, initially dismissive, couldn't ignore the gravity of the situation when he saw the shadow. With cautious determination, he silently crossed the room and swung the door open. The mysterious figure outside, caught off guard, fled into the street without a trace of purpose. Dad, his demeanor shifting, narrowed his eyes at the retreating silhouette. He closed the door, convinced that if the man meant harm, he would have confronted them rather than fleeing. Concerned, he instructed Mom to keep the curtains closed for the day, advising her to stay home with the door securely locked until his return in case the intruder returned. Reluctantly, Mom agreed, watching Dad and my sister leave. Later that afternoon, with me being an irksome crybaby, Mom enlisted my older brother to keep an eye on my younger sister while she attempted to soothe me into a nap on the couch. As she patted my back, my inexplicable wailing ceased momentarily as her gaze flickered toward the front window. To her dismay, she spotted the intruder again, a specter at our window. Panic surged through her veins as she swiftly snatched me up, causing my cries to escalate, and hurriedly locked the 3 of us in the bathroom. Fear-stricken, she dialed Dad at work, the urgency in her voice cutting through his day, prompting him to abandon his responsibilities and race home. When Dad arrived, the sinister figure still lingered at our window, hands cupped around his face, attempting to peer through the meager gap in the curtains. Dad wasted no time, delivering a powerful punch as soon as he reached the window. The intruder staggered away in a daze, Dad relentlessly berating him with every blow. "You think it's okay to scare people? You think it's okay to scare my wife and my kids? I'll show you what happens to creeps that creep around windows." Dad's furious tirade echoed through the motel room. Despite a few more strikes, the motel manager intervened, misinterpreting Dad's actions as an assault on an innocent passerby. In the ensuing chaos, the window creeper managed to slip away, disappearing into the shadows, never to haunt our nights again.
My husband and I yearned for a brief escape, a mini vacation to a semi-populated region nestled near a casino resort. The allure of casino games drew us, and we opted for an inexpensive motel a few miles away from the opulent resort. The chain motel, a seemingly innocuous choice, harbored a nightmarish incident on our final night, casting a sinister shadow over our supposed getaway. Returning from the casino, the clock ticking towards the eerie hours of 2:30 a.m., I parked our car in the familiar spot next to a nondescript red pickup truck. As we exited the car, a chill crept up my spine when I noticed a man in the corner room beneath ours, peering through the curtains. His age, a haunting detail etched in my mind. He seemed older, perhaps in his 60s or 70s. His gaze, a vacant stare, devoid of emotion. An unsettling feeling settled over me. Something was undeniably amiss. My husband, making eye contact with the man, relayed that the encounter left him unsettled. A palpable tension lingered in the air as we proceeded towards the stairs. Abruptly, a disconcerting barking noise erupted from the man's room, shattering the silence of the night. Startled, I turned the corner to ascend the stairs, only to be met with a sight that would haunt my nightmares. The door swung open, and a ferocious pit bull burst forth, barking and growling, fixated on my husband. The man, holding the pit bull by the collar, locked eyes with my husband and then, with a malevolent release, set the dog free. Panic enveloped us as my husband, avoiding a potential attack, began to kick at the aggressive canine. I, gripped by fear, could only muster a string of bewildered expletives. Though we were dog owners and harbored no irrational fear, this pit bull seemed to embody an ominous force, a creature in attack mode. It darted towards my husband, then to the stairs where I stood, and back again, leaving us trapped in a nightmarish loop. Once the pit bull retreated to its owner, we seized the opportunity to escape, bolting up the stairs and barricading ourselves in our room. The enigma of the man and his dog tormented us. Who was he? Why unleash his menacing pet upon us? In a state of bewilderment, we urgently called the front desk, demanding security. 5 anxious minutes later, a front desk clerk accompanied by a police officer arrived. We recounted the surreal encounter, and their response only intensified our unease. They claimed to have spoken to a woman downstairs, the supposed owner of the aggressive pit bull. Bewildered, we insisted the owner was an older man, not a woman. Our discomfort reached a tipping point, rendering us incapable of staying, even with the offer to switch rooms. The officer escorted us to our car, and we fled the inexplicable horror that had unfolded. Driving away, we grappled with unanswered questions, haunted by the enigmatic old man and his malevolent companion. Regrettably, in our haste to escape, we neglected to inquire about the woman's side of the story. The lingering unease and uncertainty plagued our thoughts, cementing our decision to avoid that region for the foreseeable future. The inexplicable events of that night, a harrowing chapter in our supposed getaway, left an indelible mark on our minds, a tale we recount with a shudder, vowing never to return to that unsettling area.